Hello, Hawk. My log has a message for you. Can you recall that time? That time you visited a place you swore you had never been before? And as you enter, something in your body responds. You know how the light plays across the floor. You know which board will creak before you step. You know the corner with the scuff, and you know the span, somehow. Do you ever wonder, do places remember us before we remember them? What if memory isn't something that is stored? What if memory is something that happens between you and a place? That's Argo. It's my home, my vessel. Sorry. I am here. And you are here. We've arrived at Cancer Decan 2. Cancer Decan 2. Now the Argo, my home, my transcend explorer, received its name from the Greeks. Yet another story from the Greeks. The Argo for the Greeks was a ship built by Argus for the express purpose of helping Jason and his crew of heroes to span the world and retrieve the Golden Fleece. It was divinely inspired because the ship was built with the help of Athena Minerva. Athena's most brilliant contribution was to add to the ship, Argo, a single beam drawn from the wood of the Dodona tree, which was an ancient oak in a grove. An oak that was considered Zeus's wisest oracle. And the wood cut from this oak to form the beam of Argo was placed at the prow of the ship. And the magical thing about this beam of wood was that it could speak. It had messages for the crew. Never arbitrary messages either. The beam would speak when the crew lost their orientation. It demanded ritual from the crew. In the Argonautica, the beam cried out of the wrath of the gods when there was an unjust murder on the ship during the journey. When the crew got too close to the shores of Libya, the rocky waters threatened to puncture and capsize the ship. The beam spoke of the danger of that which they could not see, that which they could not yet perceive. This beam demanded purification. It demanded the crew remembered themselves. The ritual, the purification. This is not a compass giving direction in a way that we're accustomed to thinking about. A prophetic GPS achieves the aims of right relationship, of finding your destination in a very different, unique way. It's through remembering yourself. It doesn't tell you of the future. It's an accumulated memory of all the experiences that wood has been through in that grove over years upon years upon years. Every storm, every season are held in a ring. Argo is a magical ship. How does it know what to say? All of that accumulated experience funnels forward into the present moment and forms a point at the present moment in which the right words, the exact right needed words, can be found. It can be said that the wood reads the room. Or perhaps even better, the room reads the crew. I spoke in my introduction to this Decan walk about my ship, Argo, and about the truck which came to us, which we named Vega, which is our North Star. Vega is the North Star that we follow on our home carried with us. Our vessel, our ship. And that stump of wood that you saw at the beginning of this has taken on new meaning for us. The place where we are currently living, that we currently call home, there was a storm around the time that I filmed the last Decan walk. A storm which impacted that tree so greatly that part of it fell on our roof. We had to move our home because they discovered that it had been struck by lightning and that it was structurally unstable and dangerous for us to be sleeping so near it. So that tree that had provided us shade in this intense summer Florida heat was now an existential threat to us. We watched them as they fell the tree. And the way that tree fell directly onto where we sleep, our own oak bed. Let's dig into the cards. Cancer, Decan 2. Our tarot images. First is the Three of Cups. The Three of Cups. Why are we in cups? Because we are in the water sign of Cancer. The Three of Cups image is here for the Rider-Waite. Three dancing maidens, mirthfully raising a glass, obviously in celebration. What is the nature of this celebration? Cancer. We know the Cancer card is the Chariot. I won't show the Rider-Waite one again. It's a pretty classic card. And this Decan, Cancer itself is ruled by the moon, Selene for the Greeks, the moon. The Chaldean order dictates that the ruler of this Decan is Mercury, the magus, the magician in the tarot. Mercury. Now, Hermes, Mercury, and the moon have a long storied relationship together. So this Decan brings them into a very, very happy and natural alignment. The log that speaks, the log with messages. For the Tree of Life, to bring in our most foundational tree for a Decan walk, we're in Binah. Keter is the apex of the supernal triangle. Chokmah is one point at the base. Binah is the other point at the base. Keter is the apex. Binah is of the nature of Saturn. Saturn. Moon, Mercury, Saturn swirling together in the sign of Cancer. For those of you who don't know, the tarot card for Saturn, we have the World. This is the major arcana card for Saturn, the World. Now, we already have quite a lot of indicators of orientation here in the world. Orientation within the material plane, even. The figure within the Ouroboros is mirroring the magician in their as above, so below, movement between planes. The figures around the edges of this card represent the 4 fixed signs. This is Taurus, this is Aquarius, this is Scorpio, and this is Leo. Now, precession makes it so that these don't line up with the seasons any longer, but these signs, the constellations, that these signs correspond to are home to the 4 Watcher stars, the royal stars of Persia. Fomalhaut for Aquarius, Antares for Scorpio, Regulus for Leo, the heart of the lion, Aldebaran for Taurus. Navigating the fixed cross through space and time. I'm going to bring another figure into this. In Crowley's book of 777, the associated goddess or deity to this card, to this Decan, is Hekate. Hekate is a wonderful being. Scared, misunderstood in modern times, as many of these beings are. Hekate is another chthonic or underworld god who, like Hermes, is able to move between realms, between the upper and the underworld. She famously helped Demeter navigate the underworld to find her daughter Persephone. Hekate is also one portion of the triple moon goddess glyph. The triple moon is Maiden Mother Crone, and you've seen that 3 moon image, moon and 2 moons. Maiden Mother Crone. Hekate represents the crone in that triplicate. And let's take a look at Meleen's card for the 3 of Cups. I won't go too far into the imagery here, but I will point out that she brings the Golden Dawn name, Abundance, or the Lord of Abundance. The 3 cups held in 3 hands, the 4th resting on a lyre. But what interests me the most are the 3 moons mirroring the 3 cups. These are the 3 moon phases, waxing half, full, waning half, where the light is greatest for the moon. In a marriage of the light and reflection. And I also really love the waves, and you can really barely see it here, but the waves are echoed in the dark of the moon, and she's described that as being evocative of frequency or seismogram or EKG, heart monitor. There's also a very beautiful and interesting looking ring around the full moon, which reminds me of Chericlo. We'll return to her. The question I have here is, why abundance? Why is abundance the name for this card, the name for this Decan, this stretch of time? What is abundance for Cancer Decan 2? What does memory have to do with the concept of abundance? The French philosopher Henri Bergson, late 1800s, had a beautiful and brilliant vision for what memory is. His seminal work is called Matter and Memory. And in this work, Bergson envisioned memory as a cone. I'll draw it. Memory is a cone. The cone of memory starts wide at the base and moves toward the apex. The base is the accumulation of all experience. This was Bergson's radical, at the time at least, radical idea, is that the past doesn't disappear. The past is held with the present at all times. And this wide base of the entirety of the accumulated past pushes up from the depths toward the apex. And the apex is the present moment. So this direction of this wide well reservoir of all experience pushing toward the present moment is indicating a participation between the present moment and all of experience in the material plane. He also distinguished two types of memory. Pure memory. This is the memory that exists at the base of the cone. Pure memory for an individual is every collected experience. Each individual has a cone with a pure memory base that connects to the pure memory base of the collective, that connects to the pure memory base, if you want, of all life and all experiencers in the material plane. This relates to the esoteric concept of the Akashic records. That the individual, the actor, the experiencer, anyone, in fact, has access to this reservoir. We just don't typically know how to go there. How do we navigate to this reservoir, the Akashic? It's also the foundation, as far as I can see, for another brilliant mind, still living, Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake, I think, was inspired deeply by Bergson's idea of matter and memory when he developed his theory of morphogenetic fields. Morphogenetic fields are the presence in the past. An entire species of animal have their morphogenetic field so that the experiences of the individual are not lost to the collective. That every new being that comes into that pool has in some way access to this pure memory. And the other form of memory is habit memory. Now, habit memory is if you want, the bucket that draws the well, or draws the deep waters from the well. Habit memory is the ritual that the beam in the ship of Argo demanded. Habit memory is repetition that becomes muscle memory. It is the reason why your hand is already pulling itself away from the hot stove before you even cognize that it is on. At its best, habit memory is the reason why we have what's been called the flow state. In the book Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, we have the good example of the almost magical level of expertise of a firefighter who has run into countless burning buildings. And in this particular burning building, there is zero visibility. There is no way to see an inch in front of them. There's no way for them to intellectually know or reason that the beam that is in front of them is going to give way. It's something in their body, in the moment, in their accumulated habit memory that allows them to act in the flow state. And they save the person who's trapped in the building. So habit memory, the repetition, is what brings deeper and deeper the well into participation with the present moment. And what the apex is, being the present moment in the cone of memory, is action. It is turning image and experience from the past into present action. And that, I would suggest, is why Hermes is here. Why Hermes is helping us with this act of memory. Hermes is movement. Hermes translates. So we can return to our Three of Cups image, see if it is experienced any differently. Ah, look at these. Those look like cones to me now. That is brand new noticing. Okay. So each one of these maidens has their own memory cone, has their own fractal shape, drawing from a base to this moment, participating in this present moment in which they're all choosing to raise a glass. The action of this moment is to raise a glass in celebration of abundance. Well, I don't think they're celebrating that the harvest was greater than expected, even though you have evidence of this around the card. I don't think that that's what they're celebrating. I don't think they're celebrating more or even enough. I think they're celebrating orientation. One cup. That's identity. 2 cups is relationship. That's what we just explored in Cancer 1. 2 cups is relationship. 3 cups is a shared field. So it is the participation of all 3 of these beings' cone of memory, the recognition of one's own experience in the other mutually, without intellectual recognition. This is embodied recognition. This is abundance. Because the presence of the other 2 lets each maiden celebrate that they know exactly where they are. A popular image for Cancer is the Hermit crab. Well, the constellation is meant to be the crab anyway. The Hermit crab. The Hermit crab is very Cancer Decan too, because they're not born with their shell. They discover their shell. And their shell Actually, very often shaped very much like this. Fractal shape, each one unique, each one shaped on the inside by countless other inhabitants. So not only does the new inhabitant of the home of the hermit crab, the shell of the hermit crab, need to fit its shape to all of the past inhabitants, all of the past inhabitants and the shape of all of them fit themselves to the new inhabitant. The hermit crab becomes one with its environment through participation. This becomes about a world that is navigated together. And I held off talking about one of my favorite Cancer items, which is the seahorse, the hippocampus. Meleen's Tabula Mundi card for Cancer. Instead of two horses pulling a chariot in a very, like the chariot is heading into war, this image evokes something much different. You have two seahorses, the hippocampus, that are pulling along the surfer who is navigating, all three navigating together, the water cone of memory. Now, there is a part of our brain called the hippocampus, and it is very deliberately named after the seahorse. Early anatomy, when discovering this part of the brain, noticed that it looks like, you should look up a picture of the hippocampus, looks like a seahorse. And we've studied it for a long time. What is this part of the brain concerned with? What does it do? Well, it is about memory and about orientation. But the hippocampus is not a storage. You can't think of the brain as a place that stores. Memory is not found in the brain. The hippocampus is almost more like a filter. It's a navigation device that helps us locate exactly where we are, or maybe even more importantly, it helps us find our return home. So with the hippocampus, we're able to see a macrocosm and a microcosm. The macrocosm is Argo the ship, our mobile vessel navigating the seas, the dangerous seas. That's our body. That's the microcosm, our individual body is our vessel that navigates the dangerous seas of the material plane, material existence. Habit memory for the body is often derived from trial and error. But it certainly isn't the only thing that drives memory. Because if trial and error were the only way that memory was accumulated and habit memory was brought into the body, we wouldn't be a species any longer. We would be dead, long dead. Trial and error only accounts for some of it. The other portion, Bergson would suggest, is from the presence in the past. And that brings me back to the moon, Selene. I want to spend a little bit of time with Selene. I love the moon. I've had the great honor of being able to witness in real time an amazing scholar's translation work of the Orphic hymns. Kristen Mathis is an absolutely brilliant translator, and her project for the last, I think, almost a decade now, has been to bring a new translation of the Orphic hymns into English, and doing so in an incredibly rigorous way that has yielded a few unique results that haven't come through from other English translations of the Orphic hymns yet. One being to highlight that the Orphics were using their poetry experientially, and also were describing their cosmos relationship in a very literal way that either was describing already existing astrological concepts, or was actually the source of these that got turned into Hellenistic astrology techniques. But she has extracted and found a whole host of astrology techniques that existed in the Hellenistic era, which is mysterious, as we discussed in an earlier Decan. Written in this poetry. It's written right into the poetry. And the other thing that she is uncovering is that the language is very deliberately and precisely fractal as well in the way that these hymns are composed. Well, I love her translation of the hymn to Selene, the moon. Brief history of Selene. Selene is the daughter of Thea. Now, Thea is the mother of Selene, the moon, Eos, the dawn, and Helios, the sun. Notice the shared light there in that family of siblings. In modern astronomy, one of the prevailing ideas about how our moon was formed comes from the idea that there was another body, another planet called Thea, or we've called it Thea, that at one point collided with Gaia, with the Earth, and a combination of Gaia and Thea are what forms the moon. And they found, they think, evidence of this former body embedded in the Earth's core, or in the Earth's mantle, whatever, inside the Earth. That's fascinating to me. It does nothing to explain the perfect proportion between the Earth, the moon, and the sun causing eclipses. That is something that only myth can try to explain. And here is the best explanation we have. What is the role of Selene? She is the one. Hermes helps a soul descend from the outer heavens descend from the outer heavens into the material plane, hands off that soul to Selene, and Selene takes all of the spirit matter and weaves a cloak for the soul. She gives us a home. Selene builds us a body. And notice, how does Selene do that? Well, she's pulling from starlight and earth. Mineral and starlight combine to make the material body. And each body that exists on this planet, each living being that exists on this planet, and I tend more toward animism than I do toward dead matter by quite a stretch. Each being is clothed through earth and starlight. This is a temporary home. It's a temporary home that we always release. But it is a home that is meant to be built, that is meant to be a receiver of memory, of experience. All right, I'll indulge one small detour, personal. I love how all of these beings that we're discussing relate to my personal life. I think that naming is an interactive activity, that when you name a child, when you name a pet, or a companion, or self-name, you are impacting the experiences. So I've always taken it very seriously. And right now, in Argo, I have 3 lovely beings under my care. The first, a hairless cat, a sphinx named Minerva. Minerva helped me build Argo because she's always asked for Argo. She's always asked for a home that can follow the sunlight. Always. She is a sun seeker. This is how she helped me build Argo. Then we welcomed Arachne. Now Arachne is the only mortal in our bunch, but she is the great weaver girl who was forced to compete in a challenge of tapestry making with Minerva and succeeded and made a more glorious tapestry than even the gods could muster. Arachne, the weaver girl. And most recently, about a year ago, I was visited in a parking lot about this big by a little black cat. Little black cat, no other cats around him. He came straight up to me, jumped in my car, and then when I got in my car to try to get him out of my car, he jumped in my lap, looked straight up at me, and I swear telepathically said, "Hi, I'm Hermes. Can we go home now?" So we have Hermes. And most recently, we moved here to this park, and we noticed over time that the neighbors had a visitor. And almost imperceptibly, that visitor became our visitor. And now, for the past month and a half, I've been greeted every morning and every night by a little escort. An escort that helps me move from Vega to Argo. Helps me move from Argo over to the boardwalk. Helps me move, and it is my guide. As a lover of dogs, this little kitty is Hekate. Hekate. And she's actually sitting right here with me now. Now there's no room inside of Argo for Hekate, but we spend significant time each day together out here. I'm not forcing these myths to weave through the act of naming, but the experience of us and these beings is echoing or mirroring the myths through our lives. All right. One more tree story. This is one of my favorite stories that my wife told me about her childhood. And I did ask her permission if I could tell this story here. My wife had a best friend when she was very little. Her best friend lived in her front yard. She would swing with her best friend for hours, talking, conversing, laughing together. Her best friend was a tree. And a tree that spoke to her. Very sadly, one day, when they were deep in conversation, the tree told her that it was sick. And she was very distraught about this. The tree told her it was sick. She ran to her parents to let them know that the tree had told her that it was sick and that she felt that it needed help. Parents, like all parents do, laughed it off. It's childish imagination, of course. But that's not what was happening here. Because within that month, that tree was visited by a specialist who discovered and identified an internal fungus that necessitated that tree be cut down. And that was devastating to my wife. She lost her best friend. And in addition, nobody understood the nature of her relationship with her best friend. Also, I think that being the only tree isolated from other trees, not only was the tree her best friend, but I think that she was the best friend of that tree, at least for that small stretch of 6, 7, 8 years. So, I think that children listen differently. I think that children haven't yet forgotten that everything speaks if you're willing to converse. Everything speaks. Everything participates with you through the act of collective memory. Children haven't forgotten that yet. There are amazing studies, huge databases of children pre-verbal to age about 6. And interestingly, we'll bring it back to Mercury, to Hermes, it is not long after language is mastered to the degree that a 6-year-old has it, that this fades. But from 0 to 6, there are countless case studies of children that remember past lives, past experiences. We're talking about a child that can perfectly draw the fighter jet that they flew in World War II and locate the address that they lived at, and then have this corroborated by family 3 states away. There's no way that this child would have known this or found this from TV or the internet or anything like that. There are tons of stories about this. And interestingly, around when a child begins to master language, these experiences and memories start to fade. So what is the room that reads you? The room that reads you. This is the recognition it's not just about a room. The entire world has been remembering you. The entire world remembers you before you remember it. Places have been accumulating you like tree rings. You become part of their experiential body every place you visit. And that's Chericlo, as I've begun to be with her. Chericlo. The recognition of divine, perfect proportion. Everything always ever was in its perfectly right place. And everything always is with us, is present. Nothing is lost through time. That is abundance. That is what abundance is to me. To find yourself carried in a world that remembers you long before you even remember yourself. I don't know about you, but that just feels so comforting. So good to feel held in that way. So Cancer, Decan 1, asked us, can we make room for another? So Cancer Decan 2 is asking us, can you recognize the room that has been making space for you all along? Argo speaks because the wood remembers something that the crew has forgotten. Three of Cups. Abundance. Being recognized by a home that has been carrying your shape all along. Much love to you. We'll see you in 10 days.